Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, this is Charity, your host with the Fractured Families podcast. I have with me today a guest, Pauline. Pauline is an alienated mother who's going to share her story of alienation with her adult children. Pauline is not going to be on video today. Like many parents who are alienated, we know the consequences from sharing our story can be severe, and Pauline is still working to reunite with her children. So for the sake of that, I'm going to keep the camera off, and I want to thank you, Pauline, for being a guest on the Fractured Families podcast. We had a chance to chat before the recording, and it's a really heartbreaking story. So why don't you go ahead and get us started? Tell us a little bit about the marriage and how this started, and then let's walk through where we're at to where we're at today.
Okay. Being from Utah, my spouse and I got married young through religious backgrounds, but we didn't have kids. So for the first 6 years of our marriage, no children were involved, and we ran independent lives, both, I think, highly effective people in the world, and were able to get into a home just before getting pregnant with my son. And everything seemed to go relatively smoothly, except for I was sick, being first pregnancy, also with a chronic health condition. And so I had to step away from work due to blood pressure issues and other issues. And I think a lot of financial stress sort of came to the fore at that time. But I think it also gave my ex a chance to really branch out and become a significant, provider for our family. And when 4 years after my son was born, my daughter was born. And about a year and a half into her birth, I decided it was time to go back to school because I had only finished my associate's degree. And so with the kids in tow, more often than not, I was finishing my degree, having neighbors help, doing a lot of things, trying to make it as easy as possible on my ex so he could continue to provide. And by the time I graduated my schooling, it was not in a degree that you would have thought could have excelled significantly. But just a few months after graduation, he quit his job, or he said he quit his job. I now know he was let go. But these are things that, unless you can read tax forms exactly, you wouldn't be able to know at the time. But he was let go, stayed home that summer with my kids while I went out and worked just a standard sort of salaried job that you would expect right out of college, nothing major. And he ended up finding work in Texas. And so the family moved there. And he made better money by moving us there. But within about 2.5 years, my kids were by this time full-time in school. So I started doing full-time work between multiple locations. And within the 2.5 year time frame, I moved into management with a company that was also moving me through a management program. So I would be managing multiple medical facilities with a degree that wasn't supposed to be doing this. At the same time, I was getting my master's degree finished just so that those credits didn't get thrown to the wayside. And my degree is not a degree that you're supposed to be able to fly like this, but I think my personality and work ethic and all of that just sort of, I managed almost everywhere I went. So it was just sort of a natural move into management. But my ability to do in 2.5 years and make the amount of money I was making at the same time that he lost his job didn't tell me again he lost it, was making the same amount of money as he was in 20 years. So I didn't realize at the time what a blow that would be to somebody from his background. Looking back on that, there definitely was things to be seen. Prior to that, though, when my kids were mid-grade school aged, 4 to 10, They were 4 years apart, so somewhere in that range. They would ask for things that normal, typical kids do, like, "Can we have sleepovers on weeknights during school?" Those kinda things. And my ex would come to me and ask me, the kids are asking if they can do this, and of course, my answer is what any responsible parent would be, which is, "No, you have school in the morning."
Mhm.
So I would say that to my ex, "Well, no, they can't do that. They have school in the morning," just common sense. And he would walk out to him and say, "Your mother said no." And I didn't realize at the time how often those words were used. He was never a we, us speaker. He was very an I, me, your mother speaker. So as time progressed in Texas, it was probably, gosh, not even 4 months into this managerial position that he was opening his own business for the, let's see, this time would be for the first time in the same industry that he couldn't keep a job in, which was interesting to me. And I would just point that out. He was well versed in marketing. Why don't you go do another product? This
Mhm.
isn't working out for you. But he wanted to do it anyway, and so I let him do it. So about 4 months into all of this, he came to me on hands and knees because my son had decided he was having issues with suicide ideation. He was about 14 at the time. Well, no, 12, about 12 at the time, and couldn't do school, was just struggling with all kinds of social issues at school. And so my ex was homeschooling him at the same time. So about 4 months in, he comes and on his hands and knees says to me, "The kids and I are moving home to Utah, but you can stay here." And that was one of those moments where, looking back on it, he was telling me he was done with me.
Yeah.
But at the time, I, of course, my children are teenagers. That's crazy.
Yeah.
A mother needs to be with her kids when they're teenagers. So I was able to ask my work if they could find me a job and just move me over to Utah. And my ex promised me he would have work by the time the school year ended and we could go back. So there was roughly a period of 4 to 5 months that all that was occurring. I could not. The company that I could have moved in here didn't have anything within the valley, within a close enough location for me to manage. So I decided to go back to just being an individual within those medical facilities. And he said that he had a job, that he would have a job. And by the time we moved here, it took another 2 months before he found a job. And his wage ended up being about the same it was when we left. So a significant drop in wage. I couldn't get into the management position here for the company that I was with. And so I think there may have been financial difficulties. He was very money controlling, but even my kids would actually talk to me and ask me why it was that way. And of course, I did my best to spin it. He's putting a lot of money away for us, so you don't have to take care of us when we're older,
Mhm.
which he actually did. He did a good job of that as well. But I didn't realize how significant this I, me, we, us had gotten, and that he was holding private meetings with my kids. So when I moved into management in Texas is when it started. And my daughter at age 11 came up to me and one day, and I'm a full-time manager, full-time going to school for my master's degree, which my company was phenomenal with letting me do even at work.
Yep.
Full-time mom, still preparing meals every day, full-time taking care, making sure they're doing their homework, going to all their activities, school. Like, there was nothing about me that I wasn't addicted to anything. I was just a mom trying to do as best as a mom could do under the circumstances. But she
Yeah.
came she came to me at age 11 and said, "You don't listen to me anymore, and Dad thinks so too." And I think that was the first time that it was a comment made from my kids, that made me go, "Well, that's different." And at
Mhm.
the same time, my son was saying, "I don't know how the hell the two of you are together." But we were, as far as I knew, in Texas, we were going out every weekend. Our best friends lived next door to us, just sheer chance. We ended up creating a great, so we were going out every weekend. We were meeting up together at home during lunch to spend time together. Date nights were huge. I mean, as far as I could see, it couldn't get better besides his work. But even that, we were doing fine with mine. So, of course, asked him, are you, why would she be saying that comment or he be saying that comment? Are you sitting and having conversations about me? Because that's what it sounds like. And he would deny. So after moving home to Utah, this would be roughly 2.5 years after that first remark. Uh, my daughter was now being homeschooled by me. I was able to get my son graduated while working part-time, and homeschooling him. And then after he graduated, my daughter needed help. Her anxiety was basically if she would call me at work, I was never at work. I'd have to go pick her up all the time. So I ended up quitting work to ensure that she got graduated. So it was probably almost 2 years of her schooling at the end with her. And it was during this moment that she started being really venomous and cruel to me, which there's always those times where I would talk to my ex all the time. You're telling me you're not doing things, but comments are coming that I don't know if it's because they're teenagers or if something else is going on. And he would deny, deny, deny. Well, I finally sat down with her and said, you get 3 strikes, and the out is I get your phone. So if you treat me bad, I get to take away your phone, and it'll be a 2-week time frame. So the third time came, of course, on which I knew it would, and I took away her phone, and then I gave it back and let her inform all of her friends, and then took away her phone. And when my ex came home, he came to me and wanted to know what happened, and I told him, and he knew all of this. This was an agreement that we did with all 3 of us knew all this. And he said, all right, I'm going to go talk to her now, and walked into her bedroom, and I followed behind him without him knowing and put my ear to the door. He said to her, I'm going to go talk your mother down.
Wow.
And so that was 3 years where the comments had been coming, 3.5 years probably, where the comments were coming from my kids, and he was denying that they were ever holding meetings, because I was really trying to just participate in everything and be involved in everything and do everything. When I was working, I would go to bed really early. So I'd go to about 9:30. I'd definitely be to bed by 10 because I would be waking up at 4:30 to get to work so that I could pick up my kids from school and still do dinner, still do homework. Like we just sort of, and I'm not going to say he was involved in this as well. Like we just sort of came up with a play that helped our family function where we could all still do the things that we needed and wanted to do. So at this mark, when I went back to my bedroom and he came in, I finally got to say, I just listened to your conversation. His face went white. I think he turned green. He looked like he was going to throw up. And I said, this is a problem. We need to do something about this. This is not good. And I can definitely say now it's not because they're teenagers. I'm getting comments that make no sense. So we started therapy. Actually, during the same time frame, they started having what they called family meetings. So I was involved. I got to come to these meetings.
How old were they at that point?
We moved back from Texas when my son was 14. So my daughter would have been 12. And the family meetings probably started a year and a half later. So she was roughly 14 and he'd be 16. No, let's see. If she's 14, he's 18. It's got to be 13, maybe 13, 17, because there's a 4-year difference between them. And so my ex would tell me the kids want to have a family meeting or we want to have a family meeting. And I would be like, I mean, all right, and we just want to have a meeting. So basically it was a meeting to tell mom how awful she was. My son, I think, probably hurt me the worst because he would say, I wish you'd go to hell. Dad and Grace and the rest of us can go to heaven. And I would ask why. Can you tell me why? And my daughter would tell me that I was her villain. And I would do the same thing. Can you elaborate? Like, give me for instance. Tell me why. Tell me what I'm doing. And I could never get them to give me a true something. So around this time, they both came up with a story. My son said I locked him in a closet when he was age 7. I did send him to his room at age 7. That's probably the only time I ever had to. I raised my kids with love and logic. So they were the easiest kids ever. They knew there was a consequence, and it
Mhm.
always followed immediately, and so they were easy as far as I was concerned besides what was happening, this psychology piece that was happening. But my son said I locked him up in a closet, and at age 7, my daughter had his Game Boy, and he threw her to the ground where she her whole body just landed back, slammed her head against the ground. And so I took the Game Boy away and said, you're in timeout in your room. I think this piece is one of my probably most fortunate pieces. He was diagnosed PDD NOS as a very young kid, and so I had him in special classes. He wouldn't even knew he was on the autistic spectrum at one point. He's absolutely fully functioning, I think, because of how much I had him in. But part of that piece was a psychologist. So even at age 6, I believe, is when we started the psychologist to help
Yeah.
him through school. And luckily, I was able to reach out to his psychologist and ask him, what's appropriate for this. And so it was just a 20-minute in his room. And I went and sat down with him and explained how women are not as well built as men, and you're stronger than her. And we need to respect that women are softer. And you could have just asked me and I would have gotten it for you, all the stuff that you do,
Yeah.
just to let him sort of know why it was that he was sent in timeout after 20 minutes. His doors were sliding doors, closet doors. So when he told me I locked him in that closet, my comment was, how?
Yeah.
Because even with a lock, one of them would have had to been locked from the inside. So I got to say that, and of course they just wanted to sweep it under the rug. But what was most disturbing about these meetings was my ex would say nothing, not a word. He knew the closet doors. He knew, and it was as if he knew what they were going to say as well. He didn't have to say a word about any of it. He didn't even interject with, "Why would you think that way?" Like, there
Mhm.
was nothing. He knew all of this was happening. And so it was at that same meeting that my daughter said I had locked her in a bathroom. And this was during the time that she was missing school nonstop for being ill. I didn't know alienation caused so many psychological
Yeah.
issues with your kids.
Mhm.
Good Lord.
Yep.
And it was the same thing. I'm working full time, chronically being called or chronically having to work from home. Luckily in management, my bosses were great. But I was staying home so much, and we lived in Texas at the time, that so I tried doing all the things that I think normal mothers might do in this case, which is, well, let's get her bored, So if you're that sick, we're going to let you sit in bed. You can have your books or your little stuffed animals and your blanket, but that's it, and no TV and no Game Boys. And, if I make them
Mhm.
bored enough, they want to go back to school. Well, she would jump out of bed because Texas is like National Geographic when you look out the windows.
Yeah.
So one of the times she screamed so loud, I went running up there terrified, and it was an hawk was on the fence
Oh my
ripping
gosh.
ripping, whatever it had caught in half. And so I was like, "I can't keep her bored," and her animals were her life. Oh, man,
Yeah.
I cannot keep her bored. There's bunnies, there's turtles, there's lizards, there's, like, you name it. So, the next time that it happened, we had an interior bathroom, and I said, "So, because you're so entertained in your room, we're gonna bring your pillow and your stuffed animal, and we're just gonna set up a little bed in the bathroom for you. And, this way you're close to the toilet because you're sick." I
Yeah.
did all of this stuff, but, again, just trying for her to be bored enough to wanna go to school instead of stay home. Well, at about 11, she opens her door because 'cause I'm working from home, I'm managing at this point, opens the door to come eat with me. And that was fine because it was close enough to lunch, so we ate lunch together, and then I sent her back on her way and told her, she'd get to come out and lay in her bed or watch TV or whatever at 3:30, just like school hours. So she said I had locked her in that bathroom, and I, of course, well, that doesn't make sense because if you're going to the bathroom, you lock the door from the inside. So, and do you remember coming to eat lunch with me? It was like 11, it was really early. We ate lunch together. And I saw she recognized it. I knew she recognized it. And then they just swept it under the rug again. And there was no more. And my ex, again, nothing came out of his mouth.
Huh.
So I wasn't putting a whole lot of everything together other than are you still holding these meetings with my kids? So we started seeing therapists pretty immediately after he told my daughter that he would talk me down from taking her phone away from her. And we landed in, I mean, at one point it was 5 therapy sessions a week. One as a couple, one as a family, and then one for each of us. And maddeningly, like trying to hold down anything was chronic therapy. And my spouse would never last for very long, and so he'd wanna try somebody else as soon as I'd bring that up, and so we'd move to another, move to another, and I kept my kids going and trying to help and figure them out. And during this time period too, somewhere around age 12, so right when we moved, if my ex and I were having a date night and our bedroom door was closed and locked, she would come and scream bloody murder at the door, pound on it, and just scream like the world was coming to an end. So I would tell her therapist this, and they would not really know what to say, and I'd be like, "Okay, she's 12." I was still telling them this at age 16.
Oh my
Still
gosh.
same thing 4 years later, and what would happen when this would occur is my ex would leave me and go sleep with her, go lay down and sleep with her. I do not know if anything was occurring with my kids, but he was always the one that was up late at night with them. And the one, if anybody was falling asleep with them, it was him with both of them. So, because I was getting up so early so that I could pick them up from school. So ultimately it got to the point where we were with what I thought was pretty good therapy sessions because they were telling him you can't be holding these meetings without your wife
Yeah.
present. Can't be enforcing these conversations that don't make sense. They were alluding to issues, but never coming out with any kind of terms that would make you understand. At one point, one of our couples therapists told him, I think we need to get you assertive training. And he he took that to mean abusive. So he became very verbally abusive to me, and so I had to tell him, I think you're missing what the term assertive means. It's a personal, like, you don't feel like you have to prove your worth. It's a personal confidence. Has
Mhm.
nothing to do with tearing another person down.
Yeah.
He during this time, probably towards the last 2 years of our marriage, he started finally moving out of that job that was going nowhere and into other avenues and
Mhm.
making more money and finally getting over the six-figure salary that apparently that's what he was waiting for. When I could tell he was addicted to porn. That started immediately after my kids' birth, but I could
Oh.
tell something like that was happening again. And not that I knew he had completely gotten rid of it, I just didn't understand. I think that the thing that ultimately came, and we would talk about this through therapy as well, is I don't understand why you would turn to porn when you have a wife who'd actually participate in it with you, and it could be something that we did together. Like, there was
Mhm.
always it was like it was a separation. We were never a we, ever, for anything, but he started getting very controlling with money, extremely controlling with money as he was making more money, which didn't make sense to me either. We're making more money now, but I learned after the divorce, he cashed out some stock that I had purchased, a lot of stock that I had purchased for our kids' weddings. He had cashed that out during this time. And he would sit down with me to ask me why I wasn't staying within budget. So I finally started taking all of the bills, all of the receipts, everything together, laying everything out to show him that not only was I within my budget, the family budget, but if we were ever out of budget, it was him. So I got to throw everything back at him. No, you got to get this and you got to get this reimbursed from your work. And this is because you went on a trip with your friends or golf with your friends or, all this stuff. And so none of this that is in excess is me. For 2 years, I did that, and during the same time was when I finally said, I don't get enough appreciation around here, so you all get to do your own laundry now." So I taught them all how to do their own, including him. My ex had never done his laundry before in his life, so I had to teach them all how to do their own laundry. I just started pushing back, and
Mhm.
thankfully, I had a really great girlfriend who told me to get my own account, my own bank account. So instead of it was a Easter gift that we got tickets to our concert
Mhm.
family. It was a family or it was just a concert singer that we all loved. And so
Right.
we got tickets for Easter. And when my husband gave it to my kids and they were 13 and 17, he said, I got these tickets for us. And we had been on a trip recently where it was the same. I got us this trip. And so I started asking him, you know what? I don't understand what you're doing. We have kids who have multiple people that love them. If you didn't have me in the home taking care of them, you would have to buy that out. You'd have to hire a chef, a chauffeur.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why it is that just because it's coming out of your account that you can say it's an I
Hmm.
piece.
Right.
So in doing my own account, because I used to just funnel money, all my money to him, and I would keep such a small amount and a sickeningly small amount. I told him I was keeping all the money that I made, and it was going to be the family fund money, which was roughly the amount of money that he had put aside in our budget anyway. And so that there never had to be that I word used again. It would be we. And I don't have a problem saying
Hmm.
we did this. I don't think I knew at the time exactly what I was dealing with.
Many parents don't when they're going through it. I think even when it's not happening in the intact family and you separate, you struggle with the behavior. And a lot of times it's not until well after the damage is done that you realize what's been happening.
Yeah. So through this, when I say I don't know what I was dealing with, I think when he finally asked for the divorce, and it sort of came as a shock for me. Actually, 2 weeks before that, my son came and delivered a letter, and in the letter he said that I had physically and sexually abused him when he was 7. Very or detailed a few things in this letter, and later on more emails came with a lot more stories that got more and more grandiose and that I could actually prove wrong. I kept a family journal. The whole of our marriage, I kept a family journal. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful that that was something as well that I did. But the when I finally opened that letter, and my son got he just gave me the letter all in an envelope, and he got he's obviously I'm a tiny person, so much bigger than me. I got scared because he got very verbally abusive, started coming right at me, right at my face.
Hmm.
So I asked him to leave, and when I opened the letter and read it, I fell to the ground and just started dry heaving. Tried calling my ex, who was my spouse at the time, over and over. He wouldn't answer, so I called my sister, who was a cop, and she immediately came. She read the letter, and she actually worked significantly in the sexual
Hmm.
abuse arena. She
Mhm.
herself had been abused. So she told me the reasons that she felt like that this letter is totally made up. But
Mm.
when you're in the middle of that, it doesn't matter. Like I was
Of
just as
course.
sick as they come. And then my ex finally comes home, and my sister said at the time, and I don't think I was within my mind to even know what was going on, but she said he looked very distraught. So he didn't come over and comfort me. He just looked very, she thinks it was a fearful, scared type.
Hmm.
And so 2 weeks but he did say to my sister, I will make sure this is taken care of. I will make sure that my wife is all of this is going to be taken care of, basically. 2 weeks later, he tells me we're getting divorced. And 3 days later, I am sitting with an attachment theory. Just I didn't even know what it was. And I didn't know that's what he specialized in either, but a
Mhm.
therapist. And after 4 sessions with him, I think it might have been 3 that week, but we were roughly seeing each other twice a week. About the fourth visit in, every time I went, kept asking me, "Did your husband apologized?" My kids actually knew weeks before me that we were getting divorced. So that tells you how private those meetings became.
Yeah.
Um, so did your husband apologize yet? He would ask this every time I came. And I don't, finally at the fourth time, I was like, why do you keep asking me this question? I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing it. It's starting to make me irritated. No, he's not apologized. He's not doing anything. And he hasn't been helpful through any of this. I don't know what you're asking or why you keep asking this. And he said, your husband is a covert narcissist. I don't think I'd ever even like narcissism. Maybe I learned about narcissism or whatever his name was in school. Like
Mhm.
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is.
Right.
Basically, to sort of kind of let it roll off my shoulders and my back. And I don't think I believed it. I think it took me 2 years to finally wrap my head around that I had been married to a severely manipulative, controlling, all behind the scenes narcissist. And you don't, it's one thing to be with a narcissist that's flamboyant.
Right.
You know what you're dealing with, you know what you're into. But when you finally wrap your head around all the secretive things
Yeah.
and you finally get to make sense of them post divorce, finally get to make sense of them. And at the same time, you learn about parental alienation, which is a term that I felt like it couldn't have been described more clearly in therapy sessions. Why, if we went to, I can't even tell you, at least 10 therapists, did nobody ever use that term? You learn it in school. They don't spend enough time on it, just a few hours in school. Why wouldn't you say those words out loud so that we knew what we were dealing with and
Right.
I knew where to go from there? So all of this stuff I got to find out after the fact. But
Mhm.
at the divorce, my biggest worry was my son believing that I was an abuser and
Mhm.
physical and sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So I hired a lawyer to be prepared, and I hired an alienating therapist at the same time to be
Mhm.
prepared if I needed to be defended in court. I told my boss at work that there was a possibility something was coming out. I didn't know what to expect. He was gracious enough to let me know to just keep him posted. He was like, nothing is nothing until we know it's something. So we're just
Mhm.
going to leave it until you tell me otherwise. And pretty much being told by the alienation therapist, who was herself a mother, an alienated mother, that get used to the thought that you'll never be with your kids again.
Horrible.
And I don't think you can wrap your head, when you've sacrificed and given as much as you've given up. I don't think you can wrap your head around. I think, 5 years, I'm 5 years later, 5.5 years later. It's been 5 years without my son. He's shown up a couple of times. It's not like it's gone over the greatest. I think your relationship will always be affected, even if they do show up. It's never gonna
Mhm.
be the relationship it should be.
Mhm.
And now it's been 2 years. So my daughter was actually really pretty good through the divorce and for a couple years after. I have a basement apartment she was living in, and her dad lost his job again and needed financial help and couldn't just simply ask for that. He had to create an event with her and I, so that it's been 2 years now since I've seen my daughter.
Gosh.
So even as adults,
Yeah.
this happens.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
it's
Yeah, it's not just during divorce.
yeah.
You can see the signs. I think hindsight is great. Foresight, like, I could see it. I could see what he was doing to my daughter before it was happening. I could see she started being very different months ahead of falsely accusing me. She accused me of telling her that I blamed her for the whole of our family falling apart. The most interesting piece of this is I'm actually a stronger, more well put together person than I could ever be.
Mhm.
Left the relationship.
Yeah.
It took me a good 3 years to pull myself out of despair, but I'm actually probably doing better financially than I ever could with him. I think the part of the reason that you get to take a few breaths when you're accused of things that I would literally go meet with his friends, mothers and fathers. I had to make sure the home was sound. And I would go spend time with them. It wasn't just a check in, it was
Mhm.
sitting down on their couch, having a drink, learning about their kids and their life. I always made sure my kids were safe. And so to be
Mhm.
accused of the very thing that I would go out of my way, to ensure
Mhm.
they were never exposed to was a pretty big deal. Fortunately, a couple of years ago, I got aligned with a private eye who, and I don't know, it just came out of the blue. He did polygraph testing, eye desensitization polygraph testing, and it's well revered. It's taught up at the university. It's pretty powerful stuff. And so I did a bunch of accusations. The accusations, once they start, they keep coming.
Right.
Well, the things
Yeah.
I have proof on, I didn't do, but I had about 9 items that my kids had brought up. I did the polygraph testing with him, and then I gave it to my son when he turned 26 because I thought he's old enough now. therapist
Mhm.
around that, but
Yeah.
with the abuse and I don't remember if I know I told you this when I was talking to you earlier, but the last therapist that our family was with was supposed to just be a couples therapist. He ended up seeing my husband by himself. I went and saw another therapist to do we were supposed to be doing our childhood therapy. So I was doing EMDR.
Mm.
I didn't know what my spouse was doing stuff as well, but they had brought my kids in. So this therapist was doing family therapy without me present for months, for like 5 months, and I didn't know it. I don't think I knew, what was happening, but I knew that he wasn't letting me back into couples therapy, and we had only had, I think, total 4 sessions of couples therapy with him, so 5 months of not coming back to couples therapy just seemed weird.
Mhm.
So I would just ask consistently, but this therapist recommended in the last session I was with that I actually no longer wanted to see him, but my ex still did. And obviously there were reasons why they communed in some fashion, but he wanted me to get my needs fulfilled outside of the marriage. Now we're there for couples therapy. So tell me how none of that makes sense. And he will be that person for me if I want it, is what he said. Yeah. So I go home and I tell my ex, "I'm never seeing that there. I'm never seeing him again." Like,
Yeah.
gross. And is he saying those things to you? And he tells me he's not. But my husband had an affair just before the divorce. Like I know the name of it and everything, and I have I have PI proof of it. But this therapist had him move all of our money. So that was the reason that I went and hired the PI to begin with, so that he could find our money, so that I could get
Mm.
what was due after 30 years of marriage or after 30 years of being with him.
Yeah.
He had planted the abuse stuff to my son, and my ex reinforced that. So I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm 45 years as a type 1. And so as long as I knew my ex when we were in junior high school together. We've known each other almost actually 5, we were 5 when we met the first time. So we've known each other our whole lives. But he's been with me enough to know that when my blood sugar gets low, I sink to the ground and I can't even I can't hold anything.
Mhm.
It takes all of my effort to just drink some juice. This is before insulin pumps came to be, but he reinforced in my son, your mother probably did the abuse while her blood sugar was low, knowing full well I don't function when my blood. How would I be able to do any kind of abuse when my blood sugar is low? But so he got to do all that. Well, this particular therapist, I filed charges against because he texted with me a bunch of personal information about my son and my ex right at the end. And it was just sort of one of those things where I kept texting back, not realizing he was violating HIPAA, but then later on realizing he completely violated all kinds of HIPAA.
Mhm.
So I had to threaten my ex to let the Doppel investigators know that he had violated HIPAA by telling him I'm not signing taxes until you let them know they violated HIPAA. So he did do that. He was supposed to ask my son to get involved in this investigation on this therapist, and he never did. And the reason that that's pretty key is this therapist let's see, it just happened October. So it would be 4.5 years later, just got on probation for his license. It's a 5-year probation due to sexually abusing 3 patients.
Horrific.
Had my son been there and been able to give the story of falsely accusing his mother, this therapist likely would have lost his license altogether.
Wow.
And so some of this I have detailed in emails with the investigator. So there's a lot still that I can give my son, but basically after I had learned this therapist is on probation for the very thing he
Yeah.
had my son accuse me of, I assumed that was going to be a big door pushed wide open for us to
Mhm.
come together, and details in there that he can go to the court and add to some of the accusations that are in there. And I hoped that he would, but so far it's been about 6 months since I gave him the paperwork, and I've heard nothing. I've heard nothing from, and I didn't give it directly to him. I gave it to his sister to give to him last December.
So, as we wrap up,
Yeah.
tell me, how are you trying to well, first, I'm gonna just wanna reemphasize how devastating this is and how It just goes to show that alienation does happen in intact households. And not only does it happen in the intact household, but to your point earlier, you can have alienation even when the children are adults. It doesn't have to happen when they're young or school age or teenagers. And it just goes to show, Pauline, the power of the coercive, controlling behavior of that narcissistic parent. So tell me, what are you doing for next steps? And it sounds like there's been some communication, but it's, of course, your point, it doesn't bring back the lost years.
Yeah.
What are you thinking next?
I think you, at least for me, I've kind of gotten to the point where if I reach out too much,
Mhm.
or if I reach out with, I used to send messages of memories. Memories would come to my head that were,
Yeah,
and I have amazing, phenomenal memories, being as involved as I was with my kids. But I would
yeah,
send this out. I would send these messages out, and for a while, like you could tell some of them went through. You could tell some of them were read, but it started to feel like from my last visit with my daughter, giving her that paperwork, that it doesn't matter. I'm sort of damned if I do and damned if I don't.
yeah.
It's kind of a where I'm most lost right now and where I feel most at peace is I'm going to send a message to them when I feel something significantly needs to just be sent their way, and I'm going to vary it. So it might be email, it might be text, it
Mhm,
might be a phone call,
mhm.
it might be a letter, just to throw them off guard a little bit that way. I'm not gonna include gifts anymore, and I feel like part of the reason that I wanna vary it is because the ghosting piece is too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard. So
Mhm.
writing them a letter feels like if they don't write one back, a lot of people don't do that, you know?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kinda that, just kind of a feel. They've blocked me in almost every avenue. I think when I noticed my daughter blocked me on Venmo, that was a really rough patch for me because it was like, what a weird what a weird blocking to have that occur, but they do unblock. So I do on occasion when a message go through, I'm able to see that I was unblocked for whatever reason. I'm not gonna base it off of special occasions. So
Mhm.
Christmas and their birthdays seemed like there for a while, I was like, "That makes the most sense to me," but I'm not gonna do that anymore. I feel like I'm really kinda I'm at the mercy of them. I'm
Yeah.
at the mercy of their decisions. They're both, he's 27 and she's 23.
Mhm.
They're at the first of getting the frontal lobe connection going on, and I just
Yeah.
have to sort of wait for them to start putting 2 and 2 together.
Yep.
And I think that honestly, if I were still holding out all hope, I would not be well. I would
Yeah.
not be well. So you have to find I have a great job, unbelievable job,
Good.
like an incredible job. That is definitely a passion of mine. I have a home that I've built for myself, so I do a lot to make this home my own and special for me. I have great friends.
Yeah.
My family's not the closest family, but they're okay.
Mhm.
So I do things with my family. I have family events here too. I did a cookie day. I always do a cookie day every year. It's been done since the kids were little. The last one my daughter came to, she had to tell me 3 times that she wasn't sure she wanted to come, but did come.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that. So inviting them to things, whether or not they with me, no expectations. You have to sort of
Mhm.
let go of. And really, when you think about it, because I have girlfriends with 20-year-old kids who are like, really, when you think about it, they're defining their independence and they're
Yeah.
very rare to show up anyway. So let them have their 20-year-old egotistical selves
Yeah.
and you have to hope something better will come later on. But yeah, it's still I mean, I was 30 years with him and his family. 2 of them I still speak with. Actually, 3 of them I still speak with. He alienated all of them from me. They were told not to speak with me.
That's not uncommon. I mean, they wanna isolate, they isolate for a reason, and they don't want their truths to be uncovered, so they create that separation. Everything to protect themselves.
Yeah. So I mean, I know it's a sickness because not even I did that with
Yeah.
my family. I was like, if you see him, great. I mean, I even
Yeah.
had he asked friends to go out and I was like, go out with him, make him pay for dinner. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like make him pay for your meal. And they would be like, we ain't going out with him. But it's like, you just sort of hope at some point your kids see that you weren't
Yeah.
alienating one, put it together.
Well, I thank you so much for being a guest and for sharing your story. And I know there's a lot of healing that's been done on your behalf. And when the children are ready, the adult children, I know that you'll be open to telling them the truth and hopefully they'll be there to hear it. And I just thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing your.
Yeah, if I can share, I think one last piece.
Yeah.
I think this is the probably the most difficult piece to finally come around to is
Hmm.
there are certain people who attract narcissism.
Yeah.
There are certain they look for certain challenges in you. They look for how sincere and helping you are. They look for all the things that they get to take advantage of. I think
Mhm.
it is really, really key to it was key for me to finally see that part of this was me making choices that were not best for me. And throughout the relationship as well, the number of, the amount of grace that I gave him time and
Yeah.
again that he didn't deserve. And not that it would have, I mean, we would have landed, in court and had all that ugly nonsense probably either way. And
Hmm.
this way I was able to be with my kids until the
Yeah.
end. But still, I think a significant piece of this, and I wish it was taught in some fashion to our younger kids, is there are signs.
Yeah.
There are signs. I had
Hmm.
signs. I knew what I was marrying. I had
Yeah.
signs. I had
Yeah.
signs that he was very self-centered and self-centric, and I discounted all of them.
And there's no sense in beating yourself up about it, but recognition is critical and it's key.
Yeah.
But you hear it a lot, and I hear with a lot of my guests and a lot of my clients that they saw the signs, they knew they were there, but because of the characteristics that the narcissist looks for in you as a human being, that's what they know is going to keep you in that relationship. And so, because of those characteristics, you try to see the best and the good in those people. And even through the bad, you find a little bit of good, and that's what you cling on to.
Mm.
So you hear it so often, and there are red flags. And there are some great books on how to recognize that.
Yeah.
And how I'll put them in our show notes, but that's a really great piece. And thank you for sharing. But there is, especially once you've been through it,
Yeah.
you definitely don't make the mistake again. But
Oh, yeah.
right, you just recognizing that even in friendships and not just in intimate
Yeah.
relationships, but in friendships and work relationships as well. And knowing that and recognizing is very much necessary to protect yourself moving forward.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we're living in a world now where it's gotten much grander, much more
Yes.
self-centric.
Well, because it's a learned behavior because of your environment. Unfortunately, you see
And
that a lot.
everybody's online and not in person anymore too. So
Yeah.
the world has changed. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely key to if this is going on with you and you're the one that's alienated against, to really get intuitive and discerning, and
Yeah.
you'll notice it just like you said.
Mhm.
You can notice it,
Yeah.
and you see yourself falling in that trap sooner and quicker.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
yeah, until you finally learn,
Mhm.
what it is that you're looking for. Yeah,
Pauline, thank you so much for being a guest on the Fractured Families podcast.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone in it. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.